So we were shooting a commercial about the quality of meat, steaks, that Loblaws has in their store. And these were the days before they had computer enhancement, computer generated things. So that they had barbecue pit, a barbecue thing, a grill, set up every 30 feet or so on into infinity. So there must have been 50 grills, all grilling steaks. And it's about 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And it is the fall where the apples and the peaches and everything are hanging, waiting to be plucked. 50 people are cooking 50 steaks at a time. But as it is in movies, they say, cut, there's a cloud in the sky, or somebody laughed, or there was a noise, let's do it again, new steaks. So everybody had 3, 4 steaks. That's times 50. There had to be 200 steaks, perfectly cooked, and fruit for the plucking. Lunch, and all the steaks disappeared down people's gullet. People plucked the fruit from the trees. It was it was a beautiful day in St. Catharines, and it was memorable. To this day, I remember the feeling of, wow, food. And I was, as I said, during my time in Toronto, it was tough, and I would go without a meal, so here were steaks and fruit to be had. I took a doggy bag. Okay. So that's my impression of being in St. Catharines. The only other time I can remember was I did something. They have a Shakespeare Festival, don't they? Niagara on the lake. I think the what?
George Bernard Shaw Festival.
The Shaw Festival.
Yeah.
That was it. It was the Shaw Festival. That's it. Niagara on the Lake didn't sell for the Shaw Festival. So I did something at the Shaw Festival, and all I can remember was I was doing something, and I couldn't remember the next word. Kind of happenstacked. It was like you go to introduce your mother and you forget her name. I'd like you to meet Mom. Oh yeah, it's Mom. So I couldn't remember the next word. And that's a nightmare for actors. That's the actor's nightmare. Either you're naked on stage and you don't have any clothes on, or you can't remember the word. What's the next word? And then you're out to lunch. I mean, it's a disaster. So I got up and I walked off stage and I walked over to the stage manager. There's a guy backstage who's like running the shows with all the cues for the lights and the curtains and everything. I walked over and he's got a script. He's the stage manager. He's following every line. And he looked at me. He said, "What are you doing backstage?" I said, "What do I say?" He said, "You say hello," or whatever it was. And I walked backstage. I walked back on stage, sat down, and said hello. And nobody noticed anything different. Just a character in a play got up and left and came back and continued the conversation. That was my remembrance of the Shaw Festival. Needless to say, I wasn't asked back.
Okay, what is your favorite dinner, dessert, and brown bag wine?
I did, I was doing some filming this week. I did 7 episodes of Brown Bag on Monday. I shot the last part of a reality show on Tuesday, and 7 or 8 brown bags on Wednesday. So I'm coherent on the brown bags. I'll tell you about brown bags in a minute. So my favorite meal. I like sushi. Yeah. You play the game, your last meal, and then you have to die. What would you order? Toronto is my frame of reference for Canadians, and Montreal, but more likely Toronto. I don't know whether so are Niagara people's like bedroom Torontonians, or I mean you're conversant with Toronto. Yeah? Well, years ago they had a bagel shop on Toronto. I think it was called The Bagel on College and Bathurst. College and Bathurst, there was a little shop. Canadian bagels, well actually Montreal bagels, but these people stole the Montreal bagel recipe, because that was, I believe they boiled it first, the dough in the bagel form, and then they baked it, and that was like, gave it a chewy, tangy thing. So there was the Canadian, the Toronto bagel, which approximated the Montreal bagel. I couldn't find in Toronto the equivalent of the smoked meat, the Montreal smoked meat. Okay, so now you have the smoked meat and the bagel, which is like a fantastic combination. So that's like childhood, that's like comfort food. But sushi is where I'm at now. Raw fish and little rice and walking 50 miles with a little fish and a little rice. I learned my French on the streets of Marcel Avenue. And somehow everybody got a BB gun, the Daisy BB gun. They shoot little lead pellets, can really, well, it'll blind you if it gets in your eye, but it, you know, it breaks skin. I mean, it's very powerful. But none of us had any thought of that. We all had Daisy guns, and we played cowboys and Indians. And we'd dodge from tree to tree and car to car, shooting our Daisy rifles at each other. How I didn't blind Guy and Peanuts, I don't know. I don't even know where they are now. But that's what I did. I played cowboys and Indians. And the other game I played that I looked up to, people who were good at, were with the chestnuts, where you put a hole in the chestnut with a string, and you play smacker, cracker, what do you call it? Whip it? You call it whip it. I don't know about whip it. Anybody else got a name for that game of hitting the acorn and, no, what? Conkers. Spelled C-O-N-K, do you think? Or Q-U?
Okay.
So that's what I looked up to. But you know, you're saying that you'd do the Star Trek thing. Reminds me of a guy who came to call for me in a car. I was being driven somewhere that I had to get to right away. It was like an important event. And I was all dressed up and had to get there, and they had sent a limo for me, so I was in the back of a limo, and the guy starts off down the street, and then he stops. And he turns around. And you know, nothing ever happens to a celebrity until it happens. Like, Brad Pitt got punched in the head. Did you read that? Brad Pitt is there with his wife on the red carpet. His movie, her movie is being, and somebody comes out and punches him in the head. Brad Pitt. It left an indentation, and that's why he's named Brad Pitt. He got punched in the face, so something always happens, but it doesn't happen. But this guy turned around in the limo. I thought, oh Lord, what do I do now? Do I scream like a girl? And he said, I gotta tell you something. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I was in that, what do they call it, hotel, Hanoi Hilton. I was in the Hanoi Hilton, along with all those guys, and we were up to our necks in water in cages, and we were being driven insane during the period of the time they were internment. And he said the only thing that kept us sane was we played the Star Trek game. I said, what was that? He said everybody there had memorized, had known all of the segments. So they knew the Kirk dialogue, the Spock dialogue. They knew how to talk to each other, and they'd play, everybody would take a different turn. And those people who didn't know the dialogue learned the dialogue, and so they would do episodes of Star Trek at the Hanoi Hilton to keep themselves safe. Is that remarkable?